In this video, I am going to talk about the Gate of Ishtar. This gate is one of the most impressive architectural achievements of the ancient world, to be specific, of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Now, this gate was one of the main entrances of the ancient city of Babylon, and it is also considered a masterpiece of Neo-Babylonian art and architecture. It is most famous due to its bright blue glazed bricks and the animal reliefs that decorated its surface. Now, for this video and presentation, I will explain where the gate was located, its origin, main characteristics, the significance that it had both in ancient times and modern times, and why it continues to not only fascinate historians but regular people around the world, as well as I will also give my own personal opinion about why this gate was such an important building in its time. Firstly, I am going to show the index in which I will explain the overview that this video will have. Now, for the first part, I am going to give a brief explanation about the Gate of Ishtar. Then I will explain its location, the origin, the historical origin that it had. Then I will describe the characteristics that are mentioned for the Gate of Ishtar as well as the architectural design. And then I will discuss the cultural and historical significance that this monument had. Now, for the first part, the Gate of Ishtar was one of the entrances to Babylon, one of seven gates that this ancient city had. This city was one of the most important cities of ancient Mesopotamia. Babylon, to be exact, was located in the central region of what is now modern day Iraq and was the capital of the Neo Babylonian Empire. Here I can show you a little map of where it was located. Now, this gate was reconstructed twice, once in modern times and once in ancient times. The first reconstruction that this gate had was during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar II between 604 and 561 before Christ. This king was one of the most powerful rulers of Babylon and was responsible for building many of the projects across the city. In fact, he was in charge of the restoration of most of Babylon during his era. Now, the gate itself is connected to the processional way. This is a road that stretched for about half a mile or around 800 meters throughout the city. This road used to be the place where religious ceremonies took place, where they used to parade a statue of the god Marduk. Marduk was the patron god of the city of Babylon. This road was called the processional way, was also used during the New Year festival. Now, for the gates. One of the most remarkable features of this gate was its appearance, because the structure was covered with glazed bricks designed to resemble lapis lazuli, which is a deep blue precious stone. Now, some of the inscriptions of this gate said that the building materials of it were in fact made of lapis lazuli. If true, it could indicate a trade route between ancient Mesopotamia and modern day Afghanistan. However, this gate also had several different inscriptions or reliefs, should I say, of different animals. It had lions, an ox, and a species of dragon. Each of these, according to some details, represented a god. Now, this gate in the processional way also displayed rows of lions and cattle across its surface and other buildings that were near it. These animals were not only of decorative means, but they also had a symbolic and even religious meaning that connected itself to Babylonian gods and the protection that was required for them. Now, to summarize, the Gate of Ishtar represented wealth, power, and even artistic sophistication of the ancient Babylonian civilization. Now, again, for its location, the Gate of Ishtar originally was located inside of the ancient city of Babylon, which is again in the central region of modern day Iraq. Babylon was strategically positioned between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Because of this, it was an important political, economic, and even cultural center in the ancient world. Because of its position between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Babylon was a powerful, both economically and politically, city. Because of this, it also meant that the city needed strong defenses. As a result, the walls and gates of Babylon were heavily fortified, as you will see in an example in a few seconds. Here we can see a representation of how the Gate of Babylon, the Gate of Ishtar, I may say, would have looked like along with its walls. Now, the Gate of Ishtar served two purposes. One was practical and the other one was symbolic. On the practical manner, it protected the city. Symbolically, it demonstrated the strength and greatness of Babylon to anyone entering through its walls. Now, as far as the origin of the Gate of Ishtar comes, ancient Babylonian cuneiform texts date back to around 1600 before Christ, with references of this gate. However, most of the archaeological evidence that we have today comes from the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar II. Now, this gate originally existed as a double gate built into two parallel walls that surrounded the inner city of Babylon. It also, again, it stood above the processional way, which connected the northern entrance of the city to its center. Here we can observe a 3D model of how this gate would have looked standing alone. Now, these archaeologists have also documented 9 layers of animal reliefs, which all faced the visitors entering the city. According to the ancient Babylon beliefs, these figures protected the city from evil forces that wished to enter through the gates. Again, the combination of architecture, religion, and political power made the gates one of the greatest symbols of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, both in its time and in our modern time. Now, for the characteristics of this gate, again, it was built around 575 before Christ, when King Nebuchadnezzar served as one of the kings of the ancient Babylonian Empire. Again, one of the most famous characteristics was the burnt and glazed bricks, especially those bright blue bricks that covered most of the gates. The gate itself was frankly enormous. It stood more than 12 meters tall, or about 38 feet. Again, it also had a double gate design with a large southern antechamber. The gate itself also contained around 575 images of dragons and bulls arranged in rows. This was the purpose to protect the city. The architectural style that this gate had was that of which tried to resemble that of the ancient Babylonians. The New Babylonian Empire, which was when this gate was rebuilt, was about 2,000 years after the original Babylonians. The surviving artifacts and art pieces that the Neo Babylonians had were such an inspiration that these individuals, the inhabitants of this empire and its leaders, decided to mimic the art style of the people that were before them around 2 millennia, as to revive the styles from the ancient rulers to which they looked up to, as well as combining them with new and innovative, for that time, decorative techniques. As for the significance that the Gate of Ishtar has in modern times, it has become an important archaeological and historical artifact. It is considered one of the best examples of Neo Babylonian art and architecture, especially because of its innovative use of glazed brickwork. This gates also raises important questions about cultural heritage and repatriation. Parts of the original gates were reconstructed in Berlin, while Iraq has also worked on some of the reconstruction projects that are ongoing as of today. This type of situation still generates debate about whether or not cultural artifacts should be returned to their areas of origin or they should remain in the place to which they were transported to. Now, after the fall of the New Babylonian Empire, this gate was rediscovered in the early 20th century by German archaeologist Robert Koldewey. His excavations, and that of his team, began around in 1902, and they spent several years uncovering the remains of the structure. During the excavation, many pieces of the gate were transported to a university, and after the death of Robert Koldewey, towards Berlin, where they were carefully reconstructed inside of the Pergamon Museum, where we can see in the bottom image how this gate ended up looking in its former glory days. Now, this reconstruction took about 35 years, starting from the discovery to the final exhibition in this Pergamon Museum in Berlin. Now, today, the visitors to the museum can still admire the blue walls and the animal reliefs, which can help us imagine the magnificence of ancient Babylon. Now, to conclude, it is fascinating due not only to its size, the materials used, and the way in which it was decorated, but also the significance that it had for the ancient Mesopotamians, the civilizations in between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, but it also reflects the importance that the ancient Near East, or Middle East, how some people call it, had, as opposed to the spotlight given to European and other civilizations considered as part of the First World. Examples could be that of the United Kingdom, the Japanese, perhaps even the Chinese. The countries or civilizations inside of the Middle East are not generally given the spotlight, but the Gate of Ishtar is one of those areas in which the ancient Mesopotamians, the first civilizations of the world, had a significant importance. We can now give it to them due to the techniques and how we can discover that the world, the ancient world, was even more connected than we had thought because of the presence of lapis lazuli, or brick that is given the appearance of lapis lazuli. We can see that even throughout the distance, the grand distances considered in the back in those days, there was still a trade routes where civilizations traded not only materials but also cultural significance.